Today on Locked On Canadiens, why can't we have nice things?
You are Locked On Canadiens, your daily podcast on the Montreal Canadiens, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hi there, everyone, and welcome to episode 1017. Joining me from the pizza blanket is my co-host Scott Matlove Habs Eyes on the Prize. I myself prefer to live the waffle robe life. Scott is the pizza blanket life. Either way, the Canadiens had, as Scott says, the special teams ran really, really cold, so cold that we can't even do this podcast without covering up. Scott, how are you doing this evening as we welcome people for the Friday mailbag on their first listen of the day every day?
This is a game that, again, is probably about as good for the tank as you can get if you're the Montreal Canadiens, with one giant caveat to that. We talked about how the Penguins have been disappointing and aren't all that intimidating. I know the Penguins won this game 4-1, but the Penguins looked like dog crap for most of this game and required the Canadiens to have a meltdown on the penalty kill and a broken skate blade inside 21 seconds to turn the game on its head. It's the kind of loss I look at and go, they probably should have won this game, and they played well with one whole line. But they lost, and that's just the way it goes sometimes. Unfortunately, there are bigger storylines lingering over this, but I'm more mad that they didn't get more goals. Basically, they could have lost this game, and I would have been fine with it. It's just like more than one goal would have been really nice if we're being quite honest.
Yeah, especially since, as we talked about yesterday, the Penguins aren't exactly doing much of anything right now. And at the same time, though, it is the second night of a back-to-back. I feel like they came out much better than I would have expected them to, and I was at least pleased with that. At least not on special teams, but 5-on-5. It felt like they weren't skating in soup as much as I expected them to.
Yeah, because I'm looking at natural stat trick right now. We do have I forgot we have a transaction we got to talk about before this game too. In that I'm looking at all the 5-on-5 metrics here. And again, for a second night in a row, more shot attempts. They almost tripled the Penguins' high danger chances. 3.5 expected goals to 2.1 against. It was just one of those games where that things just kind of didn't bounce their way here. The Canadiens had 10 high danger chances in the first period alone. And this comes down to
incredible considering, sorry, when you were getting into that thought, I didn't want to interrupt you, but now I am. It's incredible because given who the Penguins have, like you would certainly expect them to have more of the high danger chances, right?
and that's exactly it. And the Penguins struck when they needed to on their special teams, which is annoying because it took 6 seconds, and their power plays generally terrible.
Which we talked
And
about last night.
yeah, and here's the thing: it is bad. Their power play is crap, and the Canadians giving up a deflection goal in 6 seconds is frustrating. But I again look at the underlying metrics for this. Joshua Waugh again leads the team in expected goals for at 5-on-5. Played a great game on his own here. Tristan Jarry was really, really good for the Penguins tonight. Simple as that. The rest of the team, the Penguins, outside of Sidney Crosby, I wasn't like, when Crosby had the puck, yeah, I'm terrified, afraid, crying, throwing up, whatever. The rest of it is just kind of like none of this looks very good. Yeah, Letang had an empty netter and another goal, but at no point was I worried about the rest of this Penguins offense. It's a good loss, I guess, is the way I want to put it, is that it is good to lose a game where you played well and you're doing all the right things. The hardest part about something like this is, can you lose these games but still create good habits without the results? Like, how many of those Claude Julien teams did we see with it's got shot at him? So many shots and chances, 0 goals, and then it all kind of blew up. Can they avoid that when they keep as they continue to progress as a franchise here or as a group here?
Right. And that's like the good news is we're a good couple years away from actually needing those results to show before you fire a coach. And at the same time, like I know there's a lot of conversations to be had about whether Marty is like the development coach and then they're going to find someone else. Scott, you did mention at the top there was a roster update. I was a little bit nervous about this, to be honest, because I don't want Sens loser energy anywhere around this team.
Well, the good news is that he hasn't been a Senator in a couple of years, but the Montreal Canadiens claimed Colin White off of waivers from the Pittsburgh Penguins today. Uh, Part of me thinks they claimed him quite literally because he was in the same arena as them. He 27 years old, 6'1", from Boston, Massachusetts, played in the U.S. national team, went to Boston College. So he very likely knows Kent Hughes very well. Was drafted by the Senators, never really kind of found his way there. He was an NHLer, but never really hit the lofty expectations. Went to Florida, went to Pittsburgh, was waived this year, came into this game, 11 NHL games this season, 0 points in those 11 games, 10 points in 21 AHL games with the Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguins. He's this year's Chris Tierney, basically, in that he's not going to do anything wild or crazy, but the benefit to this is Colin White comes in, takes the fourth line center spot, and allowed the Canadiens to put Brandon Gignac on waivers to return him to the Laval Rocket before a crucial 2-game series this weekend. And I didn't think he looked bad. I just think he's doing the right thing, but his line mates aren't in the spot where he thought they were going to be. And some of that is he literally doesn't have any practices with this team. And they were like, you're playing tonight. Like, get your stuff out of the Penguins locker room, come over to the Habs one. We'll get you some stuff. And then we're going to throw you on the ice. So he hasn't even had a practice yet. I'm not going to judge him on this game, but Brandon Gignac was getting caved in fourth line minutes. I love his story. Love that he scored his first NHL goal.
Love that he even got to play in the NHL.
And that's exactly it. This is all cool, but at the same time,
he's needed in Laval.
He is more likely to be a better use for prospects like Emil Heineman, like Xavier Seaman, O'Reilly Kidney, potentially Sean Farrell this weekend to be back there and back as their leading scorer. Maybe they will, I guarantee, give him a crack that if he is still playing that well at the AHL level, if they need to call someone up, they're not going to not consider him at this point. But Colin White's your fourth line center for the rest of the season as of right now. The also on waivers today, Alex Barré-Boulet of the Tampa Bay Lightning. Every year this happens. He's the one that people say the Habs should have signed instead of, I want to say it was Alexandre Alain. I don't see it. I don't see them making the claim on him. Basically, an elite AHL player, an okay NHL player. I don't think the Habs need another just okay NHL player. They have a lot of those already right now. But I've been wrong before, so who knows?
Like the Habs have enough of like a guy, right? Like that's essentially it. And they just like went out and got a guy again today.
Yeah, they don't need a French guy. They don't need a Guy in this lineup right now. In that, if they claim him, whatever, I don't know what they're gonna do. Maybe Joshua Waugh goes back down to the AHL, but he's playing so well at the NHL level.
Leave him there for now.
Yeah, I don't understand really, sending him down to do that. He's earned his spot. They will paper him down before the NHL trade deadline. Before that deadline is in there, I wouldn't worry too much about it. But we'll see what they do. I guess we'll find out. If they really like Alex Barré-Boulet, they'll probably claim him. If not, though, because they claimed Colin White, I believe, I could be mistaken in this, their spot in the waiver order is reset. Potentially.
I believe so. I think like this is the thing. It's like that was a thing. I don't know if it's still a thing. Like there's a lot of like little rules about the NHL where like I literally have to go look through them. Scott, a quick question for you. Not a question more than anything. FYI, for any new listeners or new NHL fans, why does Joshua Roy have to be sent down to Laval before the trade deadline? Because if they want to use him in Laval anytime past the trade deadline, he needs to be. No, that's not it.
No, so they have to be papered down by, I believe it is 3 p.m. on trade deadline day. They have to be have cleared waivers or have cleared waivers by that point in time. Usually players who do not actually require waivers are just a paper transaction. They will be sent down earlier in the day, and then after the 5 p.m. deadline, they'll be recalled back to the NHL team. It is not an eligibility to play in the AHL after the deadline, but to be eligible for the Calder Cup playoffs after the deadline.
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't finish that part of it, is that they wouldn't be able to use him in the playoffs if they didn't do that. And we will continue to cover Laval and their playoff chances on this podcast. But first, we need to talk about Jayden Struble's exploding Achilles heel, potentially. We don't know what that is yet, but we are quite worried. And that's coming up in just one moment here on Locked On Canadiens. But first, this episode is brought to you by Indeed. You know what I'm not quite worried about is hiring, because I have Indeed on my side. If you need to hire, you need Indeed, because instead of searching for a candidate, just match with the best one. And Indeed will help you do that. They'll let you ditch the busy work and use them for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. And I myself, honestly, hiring is something that I find so hard. And Indeed takes all the guesswork out of that. 93% of employers agree Indeed delivers the highest quality matches compared to other job sites, according to a recent Indeed survey. And the thing that it's so easy, and there's so many applicants. There's over 350 million global monthly visitors, and you can find quality candidates fast, and you'll be matched with them, so you won't be wasting time. And that's so crucial, especially if you need to hire as soon as possible. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/lockedon. Just go to Indeed.com/lockedon right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/LOCKEDON. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed. All right, let's talk about Jayden Struble. I feel like we can't have nice things, Scott. We can't. Literally yesterday, we were talking about how Jordan Harris, it's okay if the Habs trade him because now there's Jayden Struble, and you sang his praises and you talked a lot about how he has given you this new hope about the dimensions to his game that you didn't even know existed. And now he's broken.
The worst part is that it's not, oh, he got hit, he got clipped, there's something obvious about this. It's a non-contact injury, and those are the worst kind. And his and TJ Oshie's happened almost at the exact same time in 2 separate games, which is just some kind of weird curse. For those who didn't see it, Jayden Struble was entering the offensive zone with the puck, and he kind of does the thing where, they spread their legs to kind of, they're stretched a little bit there up on their skates to kind of slow down and scan the ice. And you can see it looks like his calf slightly hyperextends a little bit. He comes to a stop and resets into a regular standing position and immediately realizes something is wrong, grabs at his lower leg there, goes down to a knee, and then struggles to get to the bench, cannot put any pressure on I believe it was his right foot or ankle, leg, whatever, had to be helped to the bench, from the bench into the back, did not return to the bench for this game. Everything about this, and maybe it is just because I've seen too many of these injuries in the NFL this year, everything about that screams that he just did in his Achilles tendon, which is not great because it is February 22nd.
It's important.
Well, it's important, and the rehab for that is
like a million years.
I was going to say 6 to 8 months, depending on how serious the injury is in there. The fact that he couldn't put any pressure on it, no matter what, it's something that was bad enough that he wasn't able to do anything with it and was in enough pain that he can't get off the ice. And what this means for the Canadiens now is that Jonathan Kovacevic will come back into the lineup, and now they need to recall a defenseman from Laval. And there are limited, I'm going to, be polite in saying this, limited options. You have Matthias Norlinder, injured. Brady Keeper, injured. Logan Mailloux, currently their top defenseman, playing all the minutes. And Justin Barron. William Trudeau as well. My thought is they will recall Barron in there, but again, you are now
seems like something the Canadiens would do.
And people are saying, "Well, give Mailloux a chance," and it's like they need him
in Laval.
In Laval, and the thing is, they probably need Justin Barron too, because Barron replaced Arbor Jackeye there as well. And the ECHL is not exactly loaded with talent right now with the Lions, and it's going to send that ripple that they have to call up somebody to basically not play. And that's not a situation the Rocket are really in a good spot to do, because the options they have, Barron, Mailloux, Trudeau, etc., are guys that you want playing minutes. They all play top 4 minutes. A couple of them play top 2 minutes in this. They're not pieces you want to move right now. So it kind of leaves the Canadiens in a spot where we go, well, what the hell do we do now? They have the Devils on Saturday, and the Rocket are playing Friday and Saturday. So I don't think they're going to make a recall on Friday before the Rocket game. That would be silly to do so. But I could see something immediately afterwards happening and being like, we need a body now as an extra person. And maybe they just run with 6 defensemen and they hope for the best. But I
don't think that's a good idea, Scott.
No, I mean, no, it hasn't worked out for anything at all. Like I for anyone who's wondering where my eyes are going, I am keeping an eye on the background to see, is there going to be Struble news? Is there going to be recall news? And as of right now, nothing. There hasn't been an injury update. I'm sure we will get one terribly tomorrow morning, because who doesn't want to start their Friday off with bad news? So
exactly.
It's tough.
Well, if we don't get it in the morning and we get it at 4 p.m. on a Friday, then we know it's really, really bad.
Well, yeah, they'll just bury it in a news dump of some kind. So they've claimed Alex Barré-Boulet and, Jayden Struble is on long-term injured reserve or something else. It's like I said, this was the loss to the Penguins is one that's frustrating, not because of the results, but because of what resulted in the game itself. I don't know how many young players I can watch get injured again this year. It sucks,
well, the good news
man.
is there's only a couple months left.
Oh, good. That's still plenty of time. That's a challenge to the injury gods, Laura. You should know that by now.
I am not challenging any injury gods. I am whatever it is that you want me to sacrifice injury gods, let me know. In the meantime, we are going to keep the segment a little bit short because we want to get to the mailbag as soon as possible. So why don't we do that just now? Why don't we do just that right now? It's Friday night, people, or Thursday night. And we will be getting to the mailbag in just one moment here on Locked On Canadiens. But first, this episode is also brought to you by Ibotta. Everything is so expensive these days. Literally everything. It's so hard. It's like inflation is driving everybody crazy. And grocery bills are no exception. But now they don't have to be, because you can start getting cash back on your grocery shopping with the free Ibotta app and get cash back every time you shop. Ibotta is a free app that gives you the most cash back every time you shop on hundreds of items, from groceries to beauty supplies to toys. So you can make sure you're beating inflation no matter what you're purchasing. The average Ibotta user earns $256 per year. That could cover the cost of an entire shopping trip. So you can buy that fight you've been eyeing, that game you're dying to go to, or the fancy dinner that you've been craving. Other apps will give you points that don't amount to much. With Ibotta, just add your offers in the app, upload your receipt, and you get real cash that you can then cash out to your bank account or PayPal or gift cards. Join the over 50 million users and earn cash back every time you shop from over 2,700 brands and retailers, including Lowe's, Macy's, Sephora, Best Buy, and more. Right now, Ibotta is offering our listeners $5 just for trying Ibotta by using the code LOCKEDONNHL when you register. Just go to the App Store or Google Play Store and download the free Ibotta app to start earning cash back and use code LOCKEDONNHL. That's IBOTTA in the Google Play or App Store and use code LOCKEDONNHL. All right, let's get to the mailbag, Scott. We had a ton of mailbag questions actually. If we don't finish them in today's episode, do not worry. We will do like we always do and either create an entire segment out of one of them or a couple of them, or just move them to next week's mailbag. And I want to let's talk. Okay, so this is a bit topical right now because people keep talking about Trevor Zegras, especially with relation to the Habs. And this comes from our friend Kyle R. Hi, Laura and Scott. I keep reading about trade rumors floating around Trevor Zegras. If we were to pick him up, what would be a fair asking price? He seems to be quite polarizing. Either people want him or they're very against it. Is there anyone else from the 2019 entry draft that Kent Hughes should look into that would be a better fit? P.S. Why is he so invested in that first round entry draft class? Kirby Doc, Cole Caulfield, and Alex Newhook. That is true. He is very interested in that draft class. All right, Scott, how sick are you of talking about Trevor Zegras?
I mean, a lot, but it's neither here nor there. The name that I've kind of always had my eye on because he hasn't really seemingly found a role with the LA Kings is Alex Turcotte, who played with Cole Caulfield at Wisconsin. Decent AHL numbers, but hasn't really been able to catch on at the NHL level. He's someone that is absolutely looking for space to play. And at 22 years old and a center, I think that Turcotte is the guy that I would be targeting. Vasily Podkolzin's potentially there, but I don't think the price is going to be too high to acquire him. He's having an okay AHL season, but he hasn't really stuck at the NHL level. Zegras is going to cost a mountain, if we're being very honest. He's a talented player. He's got 146 points in 200 NHL games, an incredible amount of skill. You were talking at least a first-round pick, a top prospect, a Beck, a Wah. I don't think they would trade Lane Hudson, but you're going to be giving up something like that probably to start this deal, and then a decent player off your NHL roster there, one of your many defensemen in there. Someone also mentioned Arthur Kaliev from the Kings. He was a second-round pick, but we'll see. Ironically, the only player from the first round to not play an NHL game yet since being drafted is Nick Suzuki's brother Ryan.
Wow.
And he is he has 10 points in 27 games with the Springfield Thunderbirds this year. I don't know what's up with that. Maybe he never was going to be as good as his brother, but outside of that, I think Turcotte is the name that I'm more interested in because the Kings don't seem to see a lot in him, considering he spent most of his time in the AHL, hasn't really broken in yet. But that's the name I'm looking more at compared to Zegras, though Zegras is better. I want to make this very clear. Trevor Zegras is the better player, but Turcotte is going to be cheaper and might fit what Kent Hughes is looking at.
It's better value, I think.
Exactly.
Yeah. And this is the thing with Trevor Zegras is that like it feels like people think that he's not the real deal. And I don't think so. Like I keep seeing comments like, oh, he's all flash. He's not like there's not a whole lot of substance. And I wonder like how much of Trevor Zegras have you watched to kind of have that opinion? Like I think he's incredibly talented. And I think that with the right, like as long as you keep him in the right situation, like he's going to be so great on your team. I just don't think the Habs necessarily have or are willing to give up what it takes for him. But, people keep bringing it up. It does seem to be somebody that, based on all the smoke, the fire is that Kent Hughes is interested in him.
And again, it seems like a draft day kind of thing that's very up Kent Hughes' alley. Zegras isn't going to happen in season at all. Like, yeah.
Yeah, it's just like people want to know, like, what will be given up for him. This is not a mailbag question at all, but somebody, John M sends us a message and it was like, the subject is thought you guys would appreciate this. And then I opened it up and I was like, what is this? And it loads and it's a meme, fastest, not a meme, sorry, like one of those graphics, fastest to 6 first round losses. And it's just 4 Toronto Maple Leafs. And it took them all 32 games to get there. I just thought it was like, it was really funny. It did make me laugh because I was like, what is this? I didn't even know, like, maybe it's spam. I have no idea. And then I open it up and it's like, all right. Our good friend, Randy Hansen, who we love and appreciate so much. A certain website has spent the entire year claiming that St. Louis doesn't like Arbor Jackeye and goes out of his way to slam the kid. How would you characterize the attitude of St. Louis towards any individual player based on his interviews? Would any report stating he doesn't like certain players be unfair, or what would you think?
Okay, so the biggest thing is none of us know what goes on in the room for any of these teams, to be very direct. I don't think he dislikes Arbor Jackeye at all. I think that he wants Jackeye to rein in what is holding back his development, and that is bad penalties. It is a lack of discipline sometimes. And here's the thing. If I were to replace that with Justin Barron, who had poor timing in some things and sometimes lacked discipline and focus, that's why he was the one who was sent down to the Rocket. If Logan Mailloux were in this spot and were making mental errors, it would be the same thing if it was Matthias Norlinder. The only ones who seem a little bit immune from it are the vets, and I think that is potentially some marching orders that you can't bench vets. Otherwise, Brendan Gallagher would have been benched against the Penguins tonight and probably should have been anyways. I don't think he dislikes them. I think he wants them to be able to see, hey, this is what you're doing wrong. Let's work on getting this together. And if it keeps happening, then okay, I have to, bench this player for a minute and be like, you can't keep doing this. This is now a more open learning lesson. This is not me pulling you aside and talking about it. This is you are seeing, you are making mistakes. You're going to learn and watch, the rest of this game or until I feel like you've gotten the point.
Yeah, and that's the thing because, like, you always look at snippets of what he says about his players, and he's never gratuitously calling them out. He just isn't. He's not that kind of cheap shotty guy. And he will be honest and realistic, right? Like, he'll say something like, I've spoken to the player. We've had many conversations. He knows he needs to be better at blah, blah, blah. Like, I just think that Martin St. Louis' leadership style is not to throw his players under the bus, but he's not an idiot, and he knows we're not idiots, right? He'll spin things positively, but he's not going to pretend, like, look at everything through rose-colored glasses or be Pollyanna about stuff. Like, if a player is struggling, the player is struggling, and it's fine. It's just never a good idea to do that, to throw players under the bus. And so he said the same things about other players too. It just feels like because we want to see more of Arbor Jackeye sometimes, it just feels like, it feels targeted. But as you said, Scott, like, there are a lot of unnecessary penalties there, and I'm not blaming Martin St. Louis for not wanting that to happen. We've got another question from Randy Hansen, and then everybody else, if you sent a mailbag question and we haven't done it, we will cover it, I promise, either as a segment next week or in the Friday mailbag, which I'm really excited about, and you'll find out why next week. All right, so Randy says, this is a different question. Who's the one prospect who's quietly done enough growing to warrant a pro contract? Is it Florian Jackeye or Jared Davidson? Isn't Jared Davidson on a pro contract?
He's on an AHL contract, so, like, technically, but I believe Randy probably means an entry-level contract, I would imagine.
Yeah.
I mean, Florian Jackeye is probably the safe bet in that regard. I think Cedric Guindon is a quiet front runner for that, and Vincenz Rohr playing in Switzerland right now. Patrick, please don't kill me for that one. Guindon's up to 51 points in 56 games this year. He's pacing at about where he was at last year, and I think I'm looking at the team right now. He's doing it with Colby Barlow only having played 46 or 38 games this year as opposed to the entire season. which probably eats some of those points away. They are not as stacked as they were last year in Owen Sound. Florian Xhekaj is an interesting one. I think they're going to do with him what they've done with a lot of these overage players is you're going to come in, you're going to play in an AHL deal for a year, see what you've got. We have your rights for a little bit, and then see if we can bring you into an entry-level contract if you've earned that, kind of like Xavier Simoneau has done. I'm just checking in on Vincenz Rohr's stats right now. He has 15 points in 44 games in the NLA. He's only 19 years old.
And he also he went through a lot of injury problems last season.
Yeah, he got dropped out his head playing in Ottawa, and he's a very smart player, and we know the Montreal Canadiens like smart players. He was very good for the 67s, 49 points in 54 games for them, 12 points in 11 playoff games. He's absolutely the kind of guy that I could see the Canadiens being like, let's bring him in next season. But Xhekaj's a good bet, but I think Guindon or Vincenz Rohr are going to be the more likely to have that happen.
I really want to see Rohr. But that's just me and my favoritism. All right. Thank you so much, everybody, for listening. If you want us to cover your questions in a mailbag, please send them to us at lockedoncanadiens@gmail.com. You can also put them in the YouTube comments. Just put mailbag question or MBQ at the beginning. You can also get them to us on Twitter. We're at LO_Canadiens. Those are some of the questions I didn't get to today, but we will cover them. We promise. In the meantime, please subscribe to this podcast wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube. And thank you so much for listening. We will see you all next time.